Hey everybody, my name is Jay Allardyce. I'm one of the co-founders here at Gen AI Works, and we are super excited to welcome you all to the Build with AI Hackathon here this week. We've seen so many folks, so many entries come in over the past month to partake in what we think is probably one of the largest virtual AI hackathons that we know of. So we're very glad that you're here, but I think you're in for a treat. As you'll see, and what you've signed up for is not simply yet another hackathon to build something that perhaps doesn't see the day or the light. When it comes to an opportunity to transform the way that society works with respect to AI. And so the exciting opportunity that we have here, and what I get to share with everybody over the next 20 minutes, hopefully is to give you some insight into redefining the pitch. When it comes to whether you're starting a company or you're building some innovation out of a hackathon, it all comes down to not simply what you've built, but how you're telling that story. How are you helping to engage individuals and get them excited about what it is that you're doing and the innovation that you've brought forth that's going to help them transform the way they work. And so I'm going to share with you over the next 20 minutes or so a bit of some insight into help to reframing that pitch, because I am certain, like many, we've all built pitches for investors, for prospective customers, and in many ways sometimes have overdone it or have underdone it. In the world of AI, it's going to be different. And what do I mean by that? Is today we are seeing so many .ai companies or individuals that are building capabilities or existing applications that are adopting AI, whether that's generative or predictive or deep learning. Put that aside for a moment. It's really about what problems you're trying to solve and what value are you creating. And so what I want to do here is walk through some slides and hopefully give a bit of that framing to help you as you go through the next few days here with the Build with AI Hackathon. Okay. So as we advance here, what I want to share across is the mission of Gen AI Works is really to help society discover, learn, and grow in an AI-enabled world together. As we formed the company almost a year and a half ago, I feel indebted to the opportunity as we built this community, which is really about helping each other learn and apply the usage of AI technologies to better society. And whether that's within a vertical, whether that's in a function, or the way that you're redefining how a business works, not everyone has a playbook, or is there a clear understanding of which applications work, why they will win, so forth. And so really the embodiment of Gen AI Works is about building a community that can learn from one another, that can help people advance the way that they work and their understanding and using of AI technologies to truly better society, which we believe is really the hallmark of what Gen AI Works brings here today. So I did a keynote a few weeks back at the Gen AI Summit in Silicon Valley. And this was really based off a paper, as many of you all know, that has brought forth what we are seeing here today, which is aptly titled, All You Need Is Attention. And so that really gave birth to the transformer model, for which much of the work that many of you are building or have built is using as a basis of those capabilities. But I want to flip the script a bit, which this keynote did, which was really all about, do you have my attention? In a B2B world where we're inundated with emails and text and videos and voice and all kinds of content to help us perhaps buy something, oftentimes we feel a bit bombarded and overwhelmed. And so the opportunity really is around shifting how that conversation can happen, such that you do really grab the attention of not only your investors, your prospects, but those in the market that understand a little bit better what you do and what value they bring, excuse me, that you bring to them. And as you go through the Build with AI Hackathon, really think about not so much just the technicals, but really that story, that script that's going to help define you and the way that you pitch the value here at the end of the session itself. Okay, 3 things we're going to cover. One is where the market is, the reality, some elements of framing to engage. How do we shape some of that conversation? And the last is winning the AI pitch. Okay, so let's dive in. It is clear that many folks are intimidated by AI, but clearly not all of you who've decided to come and join the hackathon here and be a part of building something great. But a lot of folks on the end user community things are very intimidated by AI, either concern about potentially replacing them in the work that they do, and or the fear of losing jobs, but also the fear of just not knowing how to apply technologies to the work that they are doing or just in their daily life. So there is that intimidation. We have to recognize it. And second, organizations are struggling to keep up. Many organizations are very eager to adopt AI, but again, as you've unpacked what AI from a technical perspective and applying it to various problems, there are many different dimensions of how AI can help solve a particular problem in your enterprise or your setting or the way that you work. And many employees are struggling still to find the right tool or framework and how they are applying it in their day job. And so my hope for this session here is to give you a bit of insight and perhaps how you can frame and alleviate some of these concerns that we see. Now, it is well said that there is a bit of an iceberg problem. And what do I mean by this? Let me give some context. Is that within the AI realm, if we start from the bottom and work our way up, tremendous amount of data that has been provided or enabled through many disparate environments and cloud-based environments and on-premise environments over the years, given way to a rise of infrastructure where there's a tremendous amount of technologies being built to advance the AI infrastructure, as well as the tooling that goes around that. But when you step up into the top of the iceberg here, perhaps maybe what is more visible is the notion of AI applications. And so for many startups, what is different here is that your competition field has gotten much greater. What I mean by that is that AI is nothing more than an intelligent endpoint that can be embedded within a given application to allow a user to do the work that they're doing, hopefully in a much more assisted way. Whether that's predictive or generative, the opportunity is to differentiate the value of that workflow or that application itself. So when I think about these three things is that the market landscape just got more complex. Whether you're building a native application or perhaps there's a private equity backed application that is being reimagined using AI and redefining that experience. Or maybe there are enterprises that have built custom applications and are using various forms of AI from various providers to infuse that into those existing workflows. So the competition, the ability to stand out, just got much more complex. But the good news is there is a way, there's an opportunity to help reframe that. So, but to still put that note out there, the market noise is real. And what I mean by that is just a couple examples, and there's probably a dozen or a number of different market maps that are out there today from various VCs and analysts that are just highlighting the fact of how various markets evolve. And this is just an example of that within healthcare or a broader stated of a generative AI market map. And through all this, what has fueled that is the ability where companies are building, in many cases, foundational models. And this is obviously reserved to a small few that have enough capital, access, and ecosystem and data to be able to build out these foundational models. But it's giving way to the rise of more and more applications being built, and many of which that you all will be helping to build over the next few days. So let's talk about this to help reframe the thinking a bit. Is a great quote here that I've come across. Nat Rubio literally talked about this. Is the difference between an AI startup that's worth its salt and the ones that are just hot airs, whether it's actually solving a problem versus chasing the money. And I know many folks here that they're building for the first time, or maybe you've built in multiple hackathons. And prior is you have an intent interest to solve a problem and be able to articulate the value and the impact to an end user, which is fundamentally great and really where the sweet spot needs to be. And with that does come the opportunity to potentially get funded and supported as you scale this opportunity. And so why does this sound so general? And yes, you might think, Jay, this is everything that we all know. So what is unique and different here? Is the focus is around adding value, focusing on an outcome, a problem to be solved, or the job to be done. So that becomes very clear in how things get messaged. So there is this better way. In this world of building AI agents, of which many of you will go down a track of building within the hackathon this week, is an ability to redefine how an application works and how that is actually interacting with customers. And so often a business focuses on building the go-to-market and delivering it. Why I say there's an opportunity is to really focus on brand value. What is it that you're trying to help an audience understand? What problem are you trying to solve? And ultimately cement it in the value that your application is creating for the end user or their end users to do their job better. All these three pieces come together to do one great thing, and that is establish trust. And that trust is really where many organizations struggle because they are, yet again, another application in a very crowded sea. But you have to think about it from an end user perspective or buyer perspective, which is I'm spending money to ultimately entrust myself with the application that you've built to therefore, spend my corporations or monies that I have in a diligent way that is going to help solve a particular problem. And so why do I frame it as such? Is that many companies go out and say they have the best feature, the best capability, the best technology, but so often that is just more jargon. And in the world of AI, it is all about improving potentially a top line revenue, improving productivity, or maybe taking some cost out within how the business runs. And ultimately being able to transcribe it in a way that creates value or economic value for a business is going to be the closest way that you're going to be able to articulate the impact for end users and that business in a way that somebody's going to be willing to support and potentially purchase what it is that you do. So the opportunity here as a company, and especially in the rise where AI agents are allowing individuals to build applications or reimagine how workflows work or the way that applications get built, can put a lot more attention on the way that you spend money and focus on that as you deliver the value and the message to your customer and the market itself. So let's talk about a bit of a primer here. And what do I mean by this is we all know that AI is only as good as the data it has access to. And when I think about this, redefining how you think about data and AI is, let's start with the upper left, which is what problems are you trying to solve? What is the job to be done? What is the impact to an end user? Their second is, what is the intended outcome? In the way that you might improve, what is the outcome that it affects? And be able to understand that maybe it's decisions with precision or insights, the ability to use predictive AI or be able to use generative or collectively both to solve a particular problem. And then also understanding what additional data might be valuable to that problem itself. And then lastly, most importantly, is how does it fit within my enterprise? So if you are targeting end users in the enterprise space, where does it fit in the way that they work today? So they have context, they understand it. The right-hand side just is explaining, in this particular aspect, is actually a power plant. And there's a tremendous amount of data that this plant resides on or uses and how it runs its business. And so often many people look and say, well, if I just have access to work order data, that should be sufficient. The reality is you can bring in additional data sets, whether it's power pricing, air quality, demand, labor, remaining asset life, weather, potential elevation, all things that will help to improve a prediction or improve the knowledge base of how this particular plant is running. And so in this aspect, this might be solving a problem for an energy-based company, and we'll see an example of this going forward, is how this is absolutely articulating value creation using AI to potentially predict how this piece of equipment might work or dispatch itself to solve a problem in the energy market and where it's located. So some questions you might ask in the green box back to the bottom left is, what problems are we trying to solve? Is the availability and reliability of this particular power plant. And the question you might be asking, or the intended outcome, is, can I produce power at a particular rate with a margin of potentially Y? So I want to be able to ask questions to know if this asset is available to be dispatched and being able to be fired in a way that can deliver value to end users, which in this case is, being able to turn lights on and off in their particular house, and this plant servicing maybe, hundreds of thousands of homes in the neighboring area. And in this case, it's also about precision and insights. It's much more data than just simply, do I have access to work order data, but also knowing then the last part, which is, how does this fit in my enterprise? This particular power provider might have potentially 150 plants that they own in a given market. And so how this particular plant operates with the rest is vitally important. So now you might ask, Jay, why did you walk us through an energy example? Well, it's context. If I think about the energy markets and I think about this in the case of power generation, there's a tremendous amount of data and insight off of these assets that ultimately provide a very valuable commodity that many of us take for granted, which is, can I turn on the power in my house and be able to cook the food that I have and or be able to do the homework, under a light versus candlelight? Now, in this opportunity, it's coming back to a utility which makes money And the ability to have better precision and insight of how it predicts if the equipment is running or not is vitally important to know whether then it can make money as it dispatches itself in the market. So a complex problem, but the point is reframing how you think about using data and AI in a given example in this particular industry. And so progressing forward a little bit is an example of an AI startup that is early in their journey, one of which we're a fan of and we think about a bit is Bolo AI. So Didi Sud is one of the co-founders with Dr. Lily Jain. And one of the conversations that we talked about as they were building their startup is really bringing it to the experiences that they have both had in the industry itself. And this created empathy, it created awareness, it created connection to the problem that they are aiming to solve, or how AI is actually helping to improve the unique needs that the energy industry has. And so in this case, Didi has actually served as a field service engineer, someone who's been in the field, understands the market, understands the context of where the problems are and the jobs to be done. And that creates a tremendous amount of connection to the individual, in this case being investors or potential clients, to do work. So meaning someone who's actually been there, done that, and is using AI technologies in a way to help improve their customer outcomes. And so as an example, the value creation of this is a public release that the Bolo team did with Element Fuels. And in using AI, it explained a great thing that the EVP of Engineering and Ops was able to articulate, which is being able to find the same information in 10 seconds, which otherwise would have taken many days to do, or half a day in this particular case. But you can also think about the productivity and the improvement of this, and on the flip side, show the economic value, the potential impact on an annualized basis of what this means to an end user. So in the world of AI, it's not just simply being able to use just another great tool, but it's showing demonstrable impact to what problem you're trying to solve for an end user. Now, in the hackathon, I'm not expecting teams to come up and create value creation waterfalls such as these, but the framing is showing this in a way that is providing revenue impact or productivity impact in a way that is improving cost of how a business runs. And in this particular case, Element Fuels, which happens to be a clean fuels power plant in Texas that is able to run more efficiently and operate more efficiently by using Bolo AI and helping them to bring and extract a tremendous amount of information that has taken teams a very difficult amount of time to be able to sift through across multiple environments. So another point there again around the value and the impact that your potential solution can bring. So now I kind of zoom out a little bit because this is not really for the hackathon itself, but it's an explanation of something that Bolo has done, which is really about thinking of the different levers that they're trying to approach in the market. And this is valuable as you move forward in the hackathon and potentially look to get funded or to take your technology out into the market, is where do you reach your audience? Perhaps across ecosystems or events, building thought leadership, social or trade. The opportunity is to be present in those audience environments where you're helping to build trust. You're helping to build that awareness that you understand the market, you have context to the market, you're able to explain the value of what your solution does when it comes to the impact of the business, and you're focused on an outcome. When you think of these values, this is a great example of a startup that is perhaps a little bit more mature, but still very early in its journey, that is zeroing in on an outcome, the value, and the impact that it makes for its end users and its customers. Nowhere do we start talking or seeing discussions about features and capabilities and how RAG works or how you're bringing information, or is it zero shot, or do we have certain ways that the AI model works. That is important for a particular audience and a technical based audience, but in the opportunity with AI, in many cases, explaining it to where your customer operates is going to be far more value and impact, of which then you can get down into the technicals thereafter. Okay, so let's recap a little bit when it comes to the pitch. So what not to focus on? The technical features alone. As I said before, you can list out every feature and every capability and show how you can compete against others. Now, but the opportunity really is about, not focusing on those technical features in and of itself, unless you have clear uniqueness and impact that you think is differentiating and defendable against others. 2 is that you are not an AI company. And the reason I say this now is so many companies out there are .ai or have AI in their moniker. So customers are confused. They do not know which ones to choose. They do not know which ones have the greatest impact. and what they should ultimately vote on with their wallet or pocketbook. So don't just be a generalized view of an AI company, explain it in the value to your end user. 3 is features that are unique. So your features are unique and no one else can replicate it. I do not buy it one bit. And we all know in the market that this doesn't have great differentiation or defendability, but to the point where there is uniqueness that can be protected and defined, that's all wonderful. But the ability to explain this further of how it impacts an end user has far more value to be had, as you'll see. And the fourth point is simply that AI can reduce costs and jobs. Don't alienate. Many of your end users that are potential buyers or influencers for your product might be the ones making a decision. And if you're explaining to them that their job goes away as a result of using your technology, it doesn't really show that you have empathy and awareness too much about their job or the way that they can up-level themselves to be different. And the last is not focusing on that you have an understanding of problem without the context. So often that many of us will build a technology and think it is the best thing, and everyone uses the moniker, best thing next to sliced bread. The example here being is if it does not have this awareness within potentially how it might work within an environment, be that of an enterprise or within a division or within the way the team works, you're lacking the context and the awareness of how someone might be able to take advantage of this to do their job. So what to focus on? Focus on the problem. What problem that you're trying to solve? What is it that you ultimately are trying to impact for the business and or the end user that is going to be using your technology? 2 is how your solution creates unique value. Don't just simply explain it in terms of the technicals or the fact that you can recall and deliver a solution far faster than anyone else. Really try to explain it in economic terms or value to an end user. So understand the KPIs or the problems or the jobs to be done in a given industry or a given function, and being able to explain what that means in a particular role. 3 is how your solution will improve an outcome. And what this simply means is if you can think of an outcome, improving a metric or a way that someone works, it might be improving financial top line. It might be improving some productivity of how a particular set of work gets done. As you go back to the previous example, that in previous ways, it took someone almost half a day or more to do a particular set of knowledge management to run a particular job, and they can do this now in 10 seconds. So being able to explain it as is and to be. 4th is how your solution fits within the context of a larger workflow. We know that with AI, there's opportunities to redefine how workflows work altogether. But realize for many enterprise customers or even end customers in the B2C world, you're going to be taking out a slice or driving an impact within a workflow or context of how they do their job today or do the work that they do. And so not trying to boil the ocean, but be very clear of how this might fit, knowing the inputs and the outputs, how a particular business or function might run. And the second to last is your solution that makes your end users heroes. As we said in the beginning, so many people are concerned about AI and AI taking over their jobs. There is natural fear for that, but also one of the greatest things you can do is educate and help people understand what it means to do something different, the job to be done using AI technologies, and in many cases up-leveling the way that they work. It wasn't that the Industrial Revolution immediately eliminated jobs. It actually forced people to think using a very different instrument in a way that helped them to do jobs and focus on things that had a higher impact or higher order value versus simply thinking about things that replace them. And the last is your team, the purpose, the mission, the impact, what you bring. So often a number of pitches always talk about, starting off by saying you and why you're unique and the problem that you're trying to solve. What this really, by stating it last, is the expertise and the capability that you bring, whether in an industry, a domain, or a function, ultimately ladders back to the problem you solve, the credibility that you bring, the impact. And so you think about what the example was of Bolo is the been there, done that. Having been in the boots and what teams have done out in the oil fields, Didi could speak to that, and therefore built a lot of trust in the work and the problem that she and her co-founder are driving to drive impact in the market. So when you talk about your team, it's your expertise and what you bring to the table, but it also comes down to that mission and impact that you want to deliver to end users. So in the end, tell your story. You have to be brief, you have to be bold, and you have to be convincing. So frame that problem right off the bat. Be able to articulate it, the understanding that you know in the market. The solution, get to the solution and how that is ultimately helping to frame and or solve the problem that you've identified. Do that with passion and conviction. Investors, customers, individuals around you, they all want to see that passion because it shows you have this innate interest and understanding of how this problem is and the solution you ultimately bring to the market, and showing that conviction, because people do buy from trust. They do buy when others have a deep-rooted view and being able to solve a problem with uniqueness. And then third is why now? If they miss out, what is it that they're missing? But if they are able to purchase and use, why now is the opportune time for others to take advantage of the solution it is that you've built? And then lastly, as we said before, why you and your team? Explain where you've come